The reading this morning is from Sophie's World by Justine Gardner. So now you must choose. Are you a child who has not yet become world-weary? Or are you a philosopher who will vow never to become so? To children, the world and everything in it is new, something that gives rise to astonishment. It is not like that for adults. Most adults accept the world as a matter of course. This is precisely where philosophers are a notable exception. A philosopher never quite gets used to the world. To him or her, the world continues to seem a bit unreasonable, bewildering, even enigmatic. Philosophers and small children thus have an important faculty in common. The only thing we require to be good philosophers is the faculty of wonder.
So it's 1985 and I'm 12 years old. Christmas comes and around November they start pushing robots that year. And I started seeing ads for a robot called Omnibot. It was an R2-D2 style robot that stood about 1.5 feet high and was controlled by a remote. You could pilot it around, make its arms go. It was really amazing. It was so futuristic, it captivated me. It was all I wanted for Christmas that year. And I begged my mother for it. And I knew it was expensive, and I kind of figured that I probably wasn't going to get it. So Christmas came, and I ran out to the tree, and I searched the boxes with my eyes to see if I could. The thing was big, so it had to be in a humongous box, and there was no box like that. There was a box that was like half the size, though, and I'm thinking, if Omnibot had a distant cousin who was not fully developed, it could be in that box. So my suspicions were confirmed, and I was introduced to Verbot. Now, Verbot was a much smaller robot with fewer capabilities and a voice-activated controller that was kind of like a microphone. You would program it with your own voice to move forward and back and left and right. It was pretty simple. It was no Omnibot, but it would have to do. It was pretty cool, and I enjoyed him for about a week. And at that point, I got interested more in how he did what he did as opposed to what he could do. So what I did at that point was I got my trusty Phillips head screwdriver, and I took him apart. And inside was packed with wires and gears, computer boards, all kinds of metal and plastic stuff that made up his guts. I never did figure out what made Verbot do what Verbot did. But I had a blast investigating what was inside Verbot. And I learned all I could learn, and Verbot never did work again. I couldn't get it back together. But I was okay with that. Being able to investigate Verbot's innards was what I really wanted. I just didn't know it. By the way, most of my toys met this very same inoperable fate. My desire to see how things work was insatiable then, and it still is. So, good morning. Happy Mother's Day to everybody, or to the women at least. I'm really excited, and I'm shaking, and I'm nervous, and I've never done this before, and I'm like, yeah, really. And when it came along, I thought, I jumped at it. I thought, finally, I get to show people that I could do more than just cook. And I guess we're going to see if I can actually do more than just cook. So I dove into the topic, curiosity, head first. I searched countless websites gathering information about curiosity. I did along with many hours of my own contemplation on the topic. I had a few basic questions that I thought deserved our attention. What is curiosity? Where does it come from? What's its purpose? And what effects does it have on our lives? My first response was to go to science, to get some answers. And every scientific article I read described curiosity as an innate quality that no human being is without, manifesting itself in each of us in a variety of ways and to varying degrees. The most basic scientific discoveries, technological advances, art in its many forms, psychology, the study of mind, every philosophy and religion, and so on and on. Curiosity seems to be at the root of all of it. It's so much a driving force in our lives and an integral part of what motivates us. We may not even see it in its true nature. We call it research, inquiry, inquisitiveness, problem solving, searching, even nosiness or prying. At the checkout at ShopRite, there are a dozen magazines dedicated to observing other people's lives. Has no bearing on our own. Our society has gotten to the place we are now, both socially and technologically, because of our need to seek out new information and then use it in some useful way. Our most successful companies are designing the newest, latest, and most groundbreaking widgets while tapping into our desire to have what is novel and undiscovered. Each of us has also slowed down on the parkway to rubberneck and see that accident that's on the side of the road. We seem to be designed to seek out new information and new experiences. And while we may be pleased or satisfied from time to time with our discoveries, the curiosity drive never does get switched off. In my efforts to understand what's taking place in our brain when we experience curiosity, I came across several theory models to describe the mental process. In my original drafting, I described a few of them, in the more popular theories, in detail, and I had fully intended on sharing them with you today. But with the help of my wife, I saw that they weren't really applicable theories. Having already been debunked, they weren't really adding to what we were doing. And the truth of the matter is, it seemed like I was trying too hard. It's really outside of my boundaries of what I know. So we kind of set that to the side. However, there was and is a current model that's being used that, if we're going to be thorough, we should I thought we should examine at least what they're currently using. Currently, the integration of reward pathway in the brain seems to be the most popular theory in explaining human curiosity. It describes the theory in terms of processes in the brain that release chemicals which give rise to pleasurable feelings associated with novel things and new experiences. The brain assigns an intrinsic value to that new information and then interprets it as reward. This is the neurobiology that motivates exploratory behavior. There is already some level of chemical activation, good feeling, when the reward of a familiar stimulus is already known. Perhaps more interestingly, there is an even higher dopamine release when the reward is unknown and the stimulus is novel. Basically, our brains are designed to reward us for being curious. Personally, I found all that a little interesting, but it was also a little dry. As usual, for every answer I got, whether I knew the answer or I didn't know the answer, it seemed to raise even more questions. After learning a little bit about the theories that we're giving from a scientific standpoint, I was becoming keenly aware of my own mental processes as I was delving into the subject. All that new information now had me interested in the role of curiosity in our daily lives in respect to the creative process. At what role, if any, curiosity plays as a function of learning. So off I go into the Google universe. I came across an article on BBC Online that attributes our curiosity to a thing called neoteny. This is something I had never heard of. It's an evolutionary theory term that means the retention of juvenile characteristics. It means that as a species, we are more childlike than other mammals. Being relatively hairless and having a large brain-to-body size are two such characteristics. Neoteny is an evolutionary shortcut. It's designed to bring about several changes all at once rather than selecting them one by one. Our lifelong curiosity and playfulness is a characteristic of this neoteny. By evolution making us a more juvenile species than our primate cousin, it also made us physically weaker, but at the same time has given us our child's curiosity, capacity to learn, and deep attachment to one another. Neoteny has served us well in that it extends our childhood, if you will, to our whole lives, and enables us to absorb so much more from our environment. Even as adults, we can learn new ways of thinking and doing things, allowing us to adapt easier to changing circumstances. Another little interesting online article described an experiment conducted in computer science where they had what they call learning computers. They were given an exploratory component to their learning process. The computers fared far better in their finding of new and useful information compared to those that did not have that component. The implication of this built-in human trait is that curiosity's exploration bonus has allowed us to gain new knowledge that, even if it had no immediate consequence, has allowed us to benefit in the long run. Now, our need to search seems to be our primary motivator versus the actual finding. I think this is evident in the child's question, how far away do you think the moon is? Now, I think it's clear she's not really looking for an answer as much as she is delighting in the question. It's the wonder in our natural environment, our capabilities, our potentials. That's what really gets us going. Most satisfied and full of life when I am that 12-year-old boy searching Burbot's guts with other abandon. At first, I was a little dismayed with the scientific reasoning behind human curiosity. For a moment, it seemed to take some of the magic out of being human. As much as I crave scientific exploration and the information I get, whenever I get a scientific explanation for something that's very human-y or spiritual or godly, suggestive, I get a little disappointed. When I'm really honest with myself, one of the reasons that I do so much fact-based searching is because I am looking for those things which cannot be explained. Something that will confirm my suspicion that this life of atoms and molecules is more than just atoms and molecules. Curiosity and wonder, as well as love and a few others, does this for me, personally. Now remember, no matter what scientific explanation are given for these type of phenomena, it's only theory. Science is very effective in putting these things in their place, as it were. But just as we here are prone to question most faith-based statements and theory, I think we owe it to ourselves to question the science that we are given as well, especially when it is theory. Just like religion uses faith to explain that which cannot be explained, science uses scientific theorem, jargon, and verbiage to help explain that which is unexplainable. Some things, like curiosity, should not be put in their proper place. Wonder is expansive and elevating, and any effort to contain it simply limits its function. I think the connection between creativity and curiosity is apparent in child's play. I've personally been part and observed my own children creating their own games out of thin air. It's a remarkable thing to watch develop as someone gets an inspired idea that launches the play while the rest of the group collaborates, adding ideas off the cuff with statements like, well, what if we tried, or how about we use, or maybe we could, or something like that. I draw great joy from watching my family build fun from scratch, totally spontaneous and organic. These games and fun time are so fulfilling and rich because we're not encumbered by any social rule or mental barrier. We are free to create and follow our curiosity, and we encourage each other to do so as well. These are the most memorable of our times together, because not only are we in each other's company, but we are doing what we love, expressing our creative selves together. This example of unbridled curiosity and creativity is the space where we get our most important advances, both personally and as a society. There is a certain amount of risk-taking in this process that needs to be embraced if we are to truly reach our highest potential. Oftentimes, especially in a social environment, we are concerned with getting it right, quickly and cleanly. We often ignore our curious mind that begs us to try that crazy idea we were thinking about in bed last night because we fear we may fail, and we don't wish the world to see our failure. I can tell you as a chef that some of my most successful dishes were brought to life by trying crazy things that had only a slim chance of working. The successful result may only be 1 in 10, but when I do get it right, It's pretty amazing what happens. It seems to be worthwhile, the failure. The same is true in all areas of our life. Creative risk is undoubtedly where I get the most movement in my life. Consequently, it's also the act that poses the most room for error. I need to become friends with my error, because the degree to which I embrace it is in direct proportion to my success. I have had to become okay with unanswered questions, failures, and general life messiness. There's a part of me that demands order, clean lines, shiny surfaces, no blemish, predictability. This is the same part of me that resists change and is closed-minded. I know many happy people who live their lives like this, risking little and accepting much of what is given. I truly understand the attraction of this. I have and can still live this way. There is security there. There is much less chance for failure, pain, misery, confusion, hurt. It's very safe. But this goes against our nature. Our heritage is one of expansion, seeking, asking, looking, risking. Growth and advancement are often messy and confusing. Change can be uncomfortable. We move forward into darkness and the unknown, creating as we go. We often falter, error, or even blow the whole thing entirely. Somehow we all instinctively know it's worth it. Then that newly crafted creation, whatever it may be, is now alive and there for all of us to enjoy. It is what we do. We are creation machines. And when we use our gifts of curiosity, wonder, creation, and love, we are most fulfilled. There is no lack. I believe when we do these things on behalf of our fellow man, we are truly fulfilling our purpose. There was so much information and nuance to sift through in the how of curiosity. I could have spent months doing it. But I was satisfied for now with what I had uncovered. The part that I was putting off was the why. It seemed to me to be the question that would challenge me the most, and perhaps be too much for me to handle. I was concerned that if I couldn't explain it, or make sense of it adequately, that I would be unable to complete the service. I pushed the course, and what I eventually found helped me put words to something I had long suspected, but could not articulate. It began with looking into how the brain deals with curiosity. In psychology, this is how they describe the assimilation of new information into one's current cognitive map. Simply put, we all have a unique particular view of the world, a set of rules, so to speak, about how things work, what's good and bad, our basic understanding about life in general. As new information comes in, whether it be sought out or forced in, there is a process of understanding that takes place in the brain. The new information is held against our current map, and by nature of how the brain naturally works, it needs to be assimilated. Depending on what that information is, how secure the individual is, and the landscape of the current map, that will dictate what happens next. The highly curious person will pore over the bits of information, checking all the new bits that don't jive with the current bits, and if necessary, doing further investigation until a satisfactory conclusion is made that will allow the new information to be integrated. A certain amount of security is required for this type of deep analysis. The new information is often contrary to our current information and may upset our balanced mind, assuming first that the mind is already balanced. If you like, you can replace the word information with belief, because very often we are confronted with others' beliefs that don't fit very well with our own. That's not to say that we should find a way to adapt to every belief that comes our way, on the contrary. However, we should take the time to scrutinize new information, beliefs, in an effort to expand our own horizon. All too often, I find myself quickly excluding faith-based belief because initially it doesn't fit with my cognitive map. Granted, much of what I do here upon analysis has little merit in my opinion, but the fact that I do this first without using my mental gifts does not serve me well. Optimally, I want to sift through all the information with my childlike curiosity. It has often been while looking through what I had thought was unsubstantive information that I found little gems that I've been able to make use of. Whenever I talk with our 9-year-old Mia about religion and God concepts, she always looks at it with clear eyes. Unencumbered by negative experiences, she's able to look at new information, beliefs, and extract the best things from them. Using her curiosity, she examines all religious discussion with an open mind and I can see the joy that she derives from looking into things of that nature with hope, not resentment. All too often in our search for truth, we walk right past it. We don't like how it's presented. We don't have the inner security to bravely look at something different with no expectation. We're afraid we may be changed in some way we might not like, or a certain amount of anxiety arises when our belief systems are challenged. I think that the wonder and curiosity that we all feel about life, its origins, our purpose, the afterlife, and all of that is a fundamental part of our existence. This constant questioning can either be a source of great joy or intense anxiety. All of our religions have been established and exist to help aid in the wonder, curiosity, and, in many cases, the insecurity of our existence. They give the unexplainable a framework that offers a certain amount of security. This is how the majority of the world is to investigate this aspect of their life, through the lens of religion. But for many of us here, this is far too limiting. The information given, even after much further investigation, never fully assimilated, did it? I know that for myself, the explanations for life that were offered by the church I grew up in didn't go far enough. What I understand now that I didn't know then was that curiosity and wonder was my religion. When I finally figured out that some questions have no answer and that it was okay not to know something, I was free to do what I felt the most joy in doing. Being in awe and wonder in the magic and mystery that's life. No longer was the finding my goal. It was the looking that I most craved. And I am delighted to tell you that there is so much to look at. That thing that many of us are looking for when we go to church or begin to ask those types of questions, I had finally found. And I'm sorry in advance for how sophomoric this sounds, but it was inside me all along. I didn't need to go anywhere or be preached to by anyone, because this thing I was looking for all this time was just to recognize the reverence in life's mysteries and be present to simply ask the next question. Knowing that the real joy comes not in the final answer, but in the looking and the ability to look. My own ability to question and wonder was and is my own personal, never-ending church service. I'm going to close with a poem by Alistair Reid, simply titled Curiosity. Curiosity may have the cat. More likely, the cat was just unlucky, or else curious to see what death was like. Having no cause to go on licking paws or fathering litter on litter of kittens, predictably. Nevertheless, to be curious is dangerous enough. To distrust what is always said, what seems to ask odd questions, interfere in dreams, leave home, smell rats, have hunches, do not endear cats to those doggy circles where well-smelt baskets, suitable wives, good lunches, or the order of things, and where prevails much wagging of incurious heads and tails. Face it, curiosity will not cause us to die. Only lack of it will. Never wanting to see the other side of the hill or that improbable country where living is an idol, although a probable hell, would kill us all. Only the curious have, if they live, a tale worth telling at all. Dogs say cats love too much, are irresponsible, are changeable, marry too many wives, desert their children, chill all dinner tables with tales of their 9 lives. Well, lucky they are. Let them be 9-lived and contradictory, curious enough to change, prepared to pay the cat price, which is to die and die again and again, each time with no less pain. A cat minority of 1 is all that can be counted on to tell the truth. And what cats have to tell on each return from hell is this: that dying is what the living do. That dying is what the loving do. And that dead dogs are those who do not know that dying is what to live each has to do. Thank you.